everybody. Welcome to our presentation. I'll share my slides. Here we go. So welcome, I'm Corey Knox, and with me presenting today are Norma Gonzalez and Bruce Johnson, and we're speaking to you from Tucson, Arizona. So today the name of our presentation is Counterstories of Land and Environment, Building Culturally Responsive Environmental Education from the Community Out. So that's a mouthful. Basically, we will be talking to you about some of the work we're doing here in Tucson around community listening and counter storytelling from diverse groups of our community members here, and sort of how that fits into our larger project that we're working on. And so we'll introduce ourselves, but first I wanted to turn it over to Norma, who will do a land acknowledgement before we get started. So Norma. And
Thank you, Corey. So yeah, we'd like to go ahead and start off with this land acknowledgement, and just for a moment consider that this gathering is taking place through the unceded territories of what we now refer to as the United States, which is home to hundreds of sovereign tribal nations. And so I'd like for you all to acknowledge and honor with me. This is a critical step towards working with Native communities to secure meaningful partnerships in the stewardship and protection of our cultural resources and homelands. And so with that, please take a moment to honor the ancestral lands from which you are currently in, and collectively let's support the resilience and strength that all Indigenous people have shown worldwide. Currently, myself, Corey, and Bruce, we are speaking from Tucson, Arizona, which is on the unceded territories of the Tohono O'odham and the Pasquayaqui peoples. In the event that you're wondering, whose land you're on, there is a link that you can use to see that. Thank you.
thank you, Norma. I will put that link in the chat just a second. So can we take a minute to introduce ourselves, Norma, Bruce, and Corey, just to sort of give folks an idea of kind of the organizations that we're representing and our broader work. Bruce, would you like to go first?
Certainly. Hello, everyone. Bruce Johnson. So I'm a professor of environmental learning and dean of the College of Education at University of Arizona, located in Tucson.
Norma?
And again, good afternoon. My name is Norma Gonzalez, and I'm currently an administrator of a high school here in Tucson, Arizona. But I've been involved with many initiatives and previously a department that looks at engaging incorporating culturally responsive and resurgent practices throughout all schools.
Thank you. And I'm Corey Knox, and I also work at the College of Education here at U of A. And I focus on culturally responsive pedagogies in STEM and also informal environmental learning and informal learning spaces. So with that, thanks for coming on a Friday afternoon. For a minute, we thought we were going to get 7 people, and then there was 50 within about like 4 minutes. So I appreciate you hanging with us on a Friday afternoon. So I'll turn it over now to Norma. You want to, and let me share this slide. Sorry, I took us off for a minute. Who will talk about sort of the rationale and the purpose, the reasons why we're engaging in this work.
Thank you, Corey. So yes, so again, why culturally responsive and resurgent environmental education? And there are a number of reasons, some of which we've bulleted here. But, essentially we're looking at how can we increase engagement and leadership of BIPOC youth and communities as transformative leaders and problem solvers, right? We wanted to leverage funds of knowledge from BIPOC in a way that would help us to look to addressing the environmental crisis that we know that we're in. We also want to provide opportunities for BIPOC youth and communities to reconnect to traditional ways of interacting with the natural environment. Because what we know is that currently the environmental movement really is situated and shaped by the experiences, ideas, and values of predominantly middle upper class European American people. And so this is our rationale for the project, which we will get into depth here in a minute. And I'd like to contextualize before we get into the project. I'd like to contextualize, where we are and who we are here in Tucson. We have a diverse demographic, essentially 41% Latinx, of course, our Native American population. We have a very young population. 25% of our population is under the age of 18. The district that I represent, currently there's 47,000 students, second largest in the state. And as you can see, we are predominantly BIPOC youth. We serve BIPOC youth with 64% Latinx, 6% Black, and 4% Native American. We are within close proximity to the border, about 50 miles north of the US-Mexican border. And we are situated, of course, on Pascua Yaqui and Tohono O'odham land currently. We are also surrounded by many state parks, and so that's a little bit of context for where we are and where this project takes place.
Oops, thanks, Norma. Let me give a little bit of a segue into Bruce talking about this environmental learning program that is one of the main focuses of our work together. But we're the school district, TUSD school district. We're also the College of Ed. We're environmental educators, and there's many other collaborators in the community who have come together to really think about culturally responsive environmental ed. But the location and sort of what the program that we get to work with, and that is kind of like our central sort of core of this work, is called the Cooper Center for Environmental Learning. And Bruce is going to tell you a little about that program. Thanks, Bruce.
Thank you, Corey and Norma. So Cooper Center for Environmental Learning is affectionately called Camp Cooper by many, many, many people. It has been around since the 1960s. It is a residential outdoor center. It's right on the edge of the city. It's only 20 minutes from our university campus in the center of the city. But it borders the city and just incredibly beautiful Sonoran Desert, large tracts of Sonoran Desert. And so it's a wonderful place to be able to enable young people to spend some time getting to see what the beauty of the Sonoran Desert is and really experience nature in that way. It's owned by Tucson Unified School District, but it's operated by us in the College of Education. So, the TUSD does obviously maintain the buildings. They pay the utilities, things like that. We actually operate the programs. The staff out there work for our college. As we've been doing this with TUSD for about 10 years now. And as part of that, we've been able to open this up to all schools in the area, public, charter, private, not just TUSD. But the vast majority of the schools we work with are Title I schools. And so it provides a wonderful opportunity to bring children who may not have exposure to a place like this out to experience that. The next thing I'd like to share with you is the program that's the focus of this particular project. So Earth Keepers is a program, it's an earth education program developed by an international nonprofit that I've worked with for many years, the Institute for Earth Education. The idea of Earth Keepers is to help 9 to 11-year-olds participate on a magical learning adventure. That's kind of the feel of the program. The three really key things to focus on in the program are helping them construct understandings of ecological concepts, how the life processes in our planet work, but also to develop their own feelings, attitudes, values, and to commit to taking action to lessen impact. It involves initially 3 days and 2 nights away from school and home, but the program actually is completed back at school and home, so it's not a one-off experience. And Earth Keepers is operating in many places around the world, actually. And so what does this look like in different environments and cultures? And so first of all, the program looks very similar depending on where you are. It's the same structure, the same actual activities, but obviously it's happening in a different place. And so the experience is quite different. We do sometimes, obviously, there are some modifications that happen to fit the local context, but we realize we need to do much more than that. We actually need to speak to the local communities to help us make sure that we're taking advantage of the funds of knowledge in that community to better make it relevant to the children from that community, and to make sure we are culturally, socially, and regionally relevant. And so this project is a way of using this as a way to come up with some principles for how we do that we might be able to extend to many other places and many other kinds of programs. Back to you, Corey.
Thanks, Bruce. I'm going to stop and reshare the screen. I think that I might have. Did I lose the screen? Did the slide go out on you, Bruce, when you were talking?
Yes, it did, but it's back.
I'm so sorry.
You're back.
I was talking to the moderator, and so I was clicking inappropriately. So thanks, Bruce. The Earth Keepers program, and more broadly, Cooper Center, is kind of I would say our home base and our focus on thinking about ways to adapt and include and make more diverse sort of the narratives and stories that we are sharing and teaching. But we hope that it will be sort of a have broader impact in our area. So as I mentioned, the sort of broader project is really a initiative that does take place with, at first, community listening or counter storytelling as a way to include voices and diverse stories and really go deeply and authentically into our community to like uncover sort of different ways that people think about the environment and want to have their youth think about the environment. But it goes beyond that. And so we have sort of these longer term goals and steps, which involve then using those narratives and that knowledge, those knowledges to reframe and rethink the kinds of programming that might happen at Camp Cooper or elsewhere. We have a strategy and a process for designing curriculum in collaboration with community members, including teachers, including elders, neighborhood groups. So we're trying to sort of keep that spirit of collaboration and working together all the way through the program. Sometimes I feel like we, researchers and educators, we sometimes go to the community and sort of ask them for knowledge, and we'd love to know what you know. But then when it comes back to actually making change or designing programs or designing curricula, we sort of go into our little silos and do that work. It's like, thank you for the info, and now we're going to do that. So we are trying to develop long-term participatory relationships with the community so that we can be involved in designing, implementing, evaluating, rethinking different kinds of environmentally related learning activities throughout. So those last 4 steps on the slide are just kind of sort of reiterating this, the bigger plan, sort of what we're doing with that knowledge. Too many words on this slide, but I will just say that what we're involved in now, and we're going to talk about a little bit more, and Norma's going to talk to you about a specific event that we had, and then we're going to involve you in an activity, is sort of the community listening component. And I will just say that if you haven't seen Carol Finney's book called Black Faces, White Spaces, it's an amazing, amazing book. I highly recommend it, but in it she says, she opens with conceptualizations of the environment, the legitimization of certain definitions, and the shaping of debates are created and constructed by people who in turn are informed by their own identity, their life experiences, and the context in which they live. And I think that that's what we're trying to sort of, we know that, and we're trying to like appreciate and value those differing experiences. And as EE providers and educators, we often think we're trying to, you know, create or deepen or nurture relationships between nature and youth. But I would argue that people already have relationships with nature. So it's not like we're bringing this new idea of like, hey, you should connect to nature. I think that the bigger question and idea is that we're not valuing or using or leveraging or understanding the relationships that people have with nature and environment. So I want you to, like, I'm gonna go through these. I have a series of images, and I'm gonna stop talking, yay. And I want you just to, I'm gonna go through them pretty fast, and I want you to just think about how these images reflect different ways that humans, individuals, youth, communities, cultures, racial groups, ethnic groups might think about nature and environment in different ways based on their own experiences, beliefs, cultures, worldviews. So I'm just going to go through these different images, and these do reflect some of the stories that we've heard while talking to our neighbors and community members. So here we go. So I feel like I'm muted. Can you hear me, Norma?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay,
fine,
sorry.
Cory.
Okay. So those images, I guess the take home is place and environment is not neutral. And as environmental educators and environmental researchers, these narratives and stories and real cultural connections and things that could have happened yesterday or to your family or for generations affect how nature is perceived in environmental learning should be contextualized. So that's kind of what we're working towards, and it's just a long process of developing relationships and listening and communicating, and so that is kind of a lead up into this idea, and many of you know about counter storytelling, which is both a methodology and a philosophy, and it's a central tenet of critical race theory. And we are using that to ground our work with community groups and youth and teachers in developing these stories and narratives that we can use, and they together to create a different kind, a new ways of thinking about environmental literacy and environmental ed. So Norma is going to talk to you about a community listening session and sort of the principles that we used and how it went. So Norma.
Yeah, thank you, Corey. So, for the purposes of this project, because we are leveraging the funds of knowledge and knowledge within the community, and we are looking to bring in that relevancy and that resurgency, the methodology that we use to gather some of the data and that we will continue to use is the structure of pláticas. And so pláticas is a very culturally appropriate way to engage community in collecting data, in helping, in establishing and developing, collecting those stories and experiences of present day, many-year-old stories and experiences that connect people to lands. And so this is one of our first community listening session, our first plática. And as you can see from these images, we have people in small groups engaged in pláticas and in talking sessions. And we first started off helping, our participants think about how do they interact with nature, what are their stories of nature and the environment. And so we started off with a very personal, having them share very personal experiences, and then we moved into more structured, more general questions about what is it that we want to see, what is it that the community would like with within a culturally responsive environmental education curriculum. But this first plática took place in one of our community's farms, if you will, community farm that is it's called Flowers and Bullets. And so they hosted this, and just an amazing place to hold this first plática. And as you can see, or maybe you can't see from the images, but the farm, they really engage the farming practices and indigenous and ancient native Mexican ways of farming and knowing and gardening with the environment.
Thanks, Norma. Oops, I'm going back. Yeah, so we are hoping, it was an amazing experience, and we are intentionally, these kinds of sort of relationship building and community listening centers need to be held in a place where people feel comfortable and safe and that connect to their everyday lives. So we are really being super thoughtful and intentional about where we even hold these different community listening sessions. And we did think this one isn't like an urban setting, but in a beautiful, like a farm that's been reclaimed by the neighborhood and by the community, but also having events at Camp Cooper, which is a little bit outside of town, and it's sort of not in the urban area, but it's in the beautiful, sort of mountain foothills that overlook Tucson. So place is super important, and I think it enlists, like, people think of ideas and meaning based on where they are having that conversation. So last thing, thanks Norma, that was great. I could talk about that for days. That was such an amazing experience. So we would like to all engage with you guys, have you guys take a poll. And this is very quantitative. I'm going to stop this share for a second, or is Barbara, are you in here? Did you share the, can you share
Yes.
the poll? Oh, there you
Excuse me,
go.
the link is in the poll.
Thank you. I'm afraid to do anything on my computer to mess up the slides, but we're going to ask you to take this poll, and this is just about importance of environment. You can go to that link now and you can see it. And we do use this, but we have many more items. We develop these like specific possibilities for environmental ed from interviews in our own knowledge and literature. And there's many, many more that we ask, but we just are giving you guys a little sample. And so we'd like you to take that. You can either go to that link that Barbara just posted for you in the chat, or you can try to use the QR code here with your smartphone, and it should take you right to that survey. So why don't you take, and after we do that, we're going to put you in breakout rooms for really quickly because there's so many of us. And to have a quick conversation about what you think those results could mean in your life and your programming and your work. So go take the, you can use that link in the chat to take the survey. And then while you're doing that, we're gonna randomly toss you into 5 different breakout rooms, and there will be some questions for you to discuss.
Thank you, Corey. Are you ready for the breakout rooms then?
Yeah, because I think people can keep taking the poll even while
Okay,
they're
great.
floating, time traveling to their breakout room. So yes,
Thank you.
thank you.
Did Corey ask you to broadcast some directions? Hi, Bruce.
Hello,
I don't think Corey broadcasted the directions.
I don't know either. I hope so.
Yeah, it wasn't broadcast. And so I could broadcast it. I just don't remember. Actually, no, I can't.
Let's
Oh,
see.
I put each of you in a breakout room.
Could you bring Corey back to the main room? Is that possible?
I can. Yep. She wanted me to drop things in the chat for the breakout
Oh,
rooms,
Okay, good.
which is a
Okay.
little time consuming, but I'll try to pull her back.
No, that's fine. I just want to make sure that was being done.
Okay, thank you.
I'll go back.
Can the questions be put in the chat and shared with the breakout room?
Yes, so they're working on that right now. So they
Okay.
should be broadcast here real soon.
Okay, great. And then,
Huh?
oh, am I able to, oh, I can go right back in. Great. Thank you.
Mhm.
Hey, Barbara. Barbara.
Hi, Corey.
Hi, Norma.
I could not for the life of me get back into my breakout room.
I got put in a break room. We shouldn't even been put in breakout rooms.
Oh, well,
I was trapped. It's like I couldn't, yeah, because I had stuff to share to all of them, but I was thrown
Oh.
into a breakout room.
Yeah, no, I came back from the breakout room because the question hadn't been broadcast, but then that's when our moderator said she was broadcasting it.
Yeah.
And then I couldn't get back into the room. So anyway, how's the conversation going in the room you were in?
I was just getting it set up.
Oh,
Because I had to share the results.
oh, got it.
And
Interesting.
so,
Look at that.
yeah. So those are the results. And I just shared that with everybody.
Okay.
So I hope like they can see it. It's like it's a shared screen.
Uh-huh.
And then I think they have the Google Doc in their chat so they could see the questions. So I hope it works. I'm nervous.
Yeah. Yeah. I thought we were going to do the sharing first before they went into breakout groups, but hopefully it works.
I love the top 3 though. Mm-hmm.
Yep. And it I feel like it does reflect environmental educators, right?
Yeah. Oh,
Um,
absolutely. Yes.
Okay,
Um,
Corey. Sorry, I'm going to jump in for a second. That posting to the breakout rooms was very slow, so I apologize for that, but it does sound like good conversations are going on.
Okay, so is everybody, could you see, everybody can see the results slide?
I couldn't see that. I just shared the Google Doc and then hopped back out. Did you broadcast to all?
You can see it, Norma, right now. Is that true?
yes, it would be interesting though to hold off and wait until they all come back so we can see. I don't know.
Yeah, I think everyone can see it right now.
Oh, okay, got it.
Everyone can see
Okay.
that slide.
And how much longer do you want to give them? Should we send them a message and give them a time?
When is this over?
5:10, but it's okay if you run a little
5:10?
long.
Okay, let's say, what do you think? It's 2:05.
Oh my gosh, till 10 after 2 more minutes and then we'll
Yeah,
do
2 or
the
3
full
more
time?
minutes.
Uh-huh.
Yeah,
Okay, thank you.
so 3 minutes. We'll do 3 minutes.
Melanie, would you like to join a breakout room for the last few minutes?
I'll just hang out here till they come back.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Boy, a lot of people cut out when we went to breakout rooms. So
Yeah.
we have like 2 people in room 1 and probably 7 or 8 are in the other rooms.
Yeah, that's okay.
Okay.
I'm gonna go check in and see if they can see that. Oh. There we go. Okay. Can see the results slide.
Okay, so at 5:08, you want me to bring them back?
Are they able to see it, Corey? You're on mute.
I'm going to send a message to close the room. Is that okay, Corey? You're on mute.
Yes, that's fine. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
I don't see many notes in the Google Doc, so we'll just wing it, whatever you think. Like, Norma, if you want to sort of just based on the results, kind of ask a question, or what do you think? Should we just ask them from the discussion prompts, or just more general?
Are we going to our last slide, the next step slide?
Just the closing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, that's like,
Because we can have them share,
Yeah.
you know, just have a couple of them share.
okay. Okay, I'm gonna stop share this one, and I'm gonna share our slides again.
Okay.
Thanks, everybody. Sorry, that was super bumpy. I know we couldn't, it was, I had nightmares about it last night, and some of them came true, but we hope that the prompts sort of elicited some fun discussion with you. I think that the poll is kind of interesting, and I will say that it was slightly, to me and to Norma, we were looking at the results. It did reflect kind of, my first was like, oh, well, yeah, they're EE people, you know, sort of, and it did reflect that. It was awesome. It was awesome. Like the top 3 were Indigenous knowledge, specific to land. And then there was a separate item that was Indigenous knowledge of plants and animals. So, and those are pretty interesting difference, right? And I was talking to Bruce about it a few weeks ago, and one is very about receiving knowledge and naming things, like what does the Indigenous tribe of this area call this, right? So it's more reductive, but important, like words, literature, and meaning. And then there was another option that was about land use, how land is used, which is sort of more holistic. And so those are the top. And then the third one was ecological connections. And so that is not what we find necessarily when we're surveying the community and people that aren't in education and that are not in environmental ed. So before we close, and I know we're going over time, we wondered if anybody or any group wanted to sort of share some interesting or enlightening or helpful for us discussions or themes that came up in your breakout group. Anybody can raise your hand or just start talking. Thanks.
I don't want to speak for anyone else in my group because this wasn't really my thought, but where we landed in our discussion was about decentering our whiteness, which might be another way to reframe the idea of cultural responsiveness. So yeah, that's where we were at, and I was just struck by that. And it tied me back to an earlier thought I was having about how this might relate to the idea of decolonization. Like, as a white person, as a white instructor, and if my students are all white, but the history in this place that we're in is not, what obligation do I have to not respond to the white culture, to not just reinforce their entrenched beliefs?
Yeah, thank you for sharing, Jay. I think that, by including the community, by including their voice, their experiences, that you know, in and of itself is a step towards decolonizing, right? Because we are now reframing and we're bringing in those experiences of the people that aren't usually, you know, their voice isn't present in EE curriculum or EE movements. And so that's a great conversation that your group had. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, and I will add that, like, I think decolonizing is a verb, right? It's a verb and it's a process. And I feel like sometimes, I mean, and I will admit this for myself, like that I will be like, oh, we need to do this because this would be decolonizing. We need to have indigenous knowledge being at the root of this because that's what we need to do. And you know, like now we're Corey colonizing, right? Or we're like sort of who gets to decide what stories and what is what. So really this process is going to take a long time and it's a lot of work, as we already know, and a lot of hours, but already it is decolonizing even sort of our own views of what decolonizing is, right? Like crossing the border, for example, was a story that we heard, and that the camping in nature is also life and death for undocumented folks trying to flee harm and danger in Mexico and other places. So then when their kids come to camp and we're all like, yay, look at, this is so nice, come on. There's, you know, we're sort of not contextualizing that kind of experience, which is not that uncommon in borderland areas. So I think that community counter storytelling is just like, we could all spend lots of years listening, right? So anybody else have a thought that came up? Jump in. Bruce or Norma, do you want to leave us with some last comments or thoughts or questions?
You know, just again, thank you all for your sharing your thoughts with us this afternoon and you know, our project here, and just for being in community with us. And I think that we're speaking to the choir here. So thank you all for the work that you do.
I'd just like to add my thanks too for all of you, and especially to Corey and Norma for leading this effort. I've learned a tremendous amount already, and we have a lot more to go. We're just starting down this pathway. So stay tuned. We'll have many more updates for you as we dig into this more.
Thanks, everybody. Have a great weekend.